Ladies and gentlemen of Stashland, we bring to you the commander of color, the gradient general, the sultan of shade, and the titan of tonality. One of the OGs of digital coloring. One of the most prolific artists in the game.
Alright, so here we go. We're gonna jump in here, and what you guys are looking at is the Detective Comics 1027 cover that Jim Scott and I did together. What was cool about this is that even though it's Detective Comics, Jim chose to do both of them. He chose to do The World's Finest, and I think it's because in anticipation of the fact that everybody was going to just do a Batman piece, Jim really wanted to bring something else that's part of the Batman universe, and it's that his relationship with Superman, right? Something that we were just talking about. So when I look at something like this, it's cool because this is when you're bringing both worlds together, you have to almost meld the two, right? So when I was talking about grungy, dingy, dirty, and then Superman's glowing, new, and slick, when you put them both together, you almost kind of have to clash the two and show the two so that they look like they belong together. And so that's the main challenge, bringing a lighting that's going to complement both of the characters. And so in showing the process that I work with, I'm sure you've talked to the colorist like Dave, and the process that I use is really a flattening first, where I use a lasso tool like this, and I go through each element and I'll select it with the lasso tool, and then I'll bucket a color, and then I'll go on to the next element and select it. And so that first process is called flattening, and when you go through and you select everything and you bucket in what's flat color, no rendering on it, and that's what's called flatting. You create the flats, and so when you're done with it, it'll look like this, and it's still in the flatting stage. At this point, I've decided that I'm going to use a golden light in the city to shine up on them. Okay, all right, and then let's go work on Batman. The reason we do the flats is it allows me to now come in with just the magic wand, and instead of having to click again with the lasso, I'm just clicking once with the magic wand and it selects it. So these little kind of ants that you see marching around his face is a selection. It's a mask of what I can affect, so that if I'm coming in with, let's say, this color here, anything that I color, inside the mask will work, but if I'm coloring outside of it, it won't affect any of that. All right, so it's essentially, if you were airbrushing, you would kind of block out what you don't want to affect, and then and paint within there. And so what I'm going to do is I'm kind of add some shading here. I'll shade away from the light, use a little bit of a different brush to carve out some more of the shadows. And this is, years and years of drawing portraits and painting portraits and really just rendering human beings. They all kind of come into play here. And then I'm going to come in with an uplight, which is that golden light that I was talking about. And then again, start to carve out a little bit more of the detailing that's going to be coming in.
How long does it normally take you to do a cover like this?
So this cover probably will take, from black and white to finish, will probably be about 3 to 4 hours. The flats will probably take about an hour. These maybe took a little bit longer because of all the buildings and all the windows. But believe it or not, once the buildings are flatted, they're really easy to color because it's just a lot of, especially in the distance, I don't have to worry about texture. As you get closer in, you'll see as I color it that I start to add more texture, and that kind of gives you that illusion of depth. Right? So something that's really close has a lot of texture, and as it moves away, that texture starts to disappear, so that when you have a city that's this far away, I'm really just using gradients of color and just some cast shadows here and there to help pop that and create that depth. All right, and so little by little, I'll start working on each piece like this, Keeping in mind that the light source is from below, so the cast shadows play an important part in establishing that. Coming in here, I'm going to start to block in a little bit of the shadows and reading what Jim and Scott have laid ahead of me, right? So that I'm observing the shadows that Jim's and Scott really established for that part of his pec.
Right.
And then mirroring it with the rendering, playing with what they had and adding what I'm bringing to it, and so that on the belt here is in shadow.
So it's Photoshop. Photoshop is pretty much the standard program to color comics. Is that fair to say?
It's what I use. It's what I've used my entire career. To me, Photoshop still is the best program to use when it comes to producing stuff that you're going to print, right? The conversion algorithms that it uses to convert files from RGB to CMYK or prep them and trap them for print. I think Photoshop is the authority on that. And so even when as I mentioned before, I work on Procreate, if I'm doing a piece that I've completely rendered in Procreate, I still will open it up in Photoshop to make sure that all my levels are properly balanced and work for the printed version. And then I'll create the print version with Photoshop in the end. All right, and so I'll go through the whole piece and render it through, and then this is where you see what I'm talking about with observing the shadows, the highlights, and then the textures, right? Where there's texture in this part of the wall, but this part of the building that's farther away, there's no reason why there should be any kind of texture. You add as much detail as you can.
Do you ever get critiqued, any criticism from Jim or Scott about your coloring, or they just let the master do his work?
No, it's funny because we all kind of show each other what we've been doing. So Jim will show us the pencils when he's done with them, and then Scott will show us the inks, and then I'll show the colors, and obviously it's a way of saying I'm done. Let me know if you have any comments on it, if you see anything that needs work, and Jim drives that bus. Mostly he's the one that will kick back corrections, and I think it's because his vision, what's great about Jim is that when he's drawing it, in his head, he's seeing it colored, he's seeing it finished, and yet he's also allowing for us to come in with our own vision and add to the piece. But he's anticipating what Scott's going to do and what I'm going to do as he's doing it, and that's what makes working with someone like Jim so great, is that he's a well enough rounded artist that he's leaving room for Scott and I to bring our own game. His comments, it's funny because anytime he points something out, it's one of those things that when he mentions it, you look at it and go, oh, he's right. He's got a great eye for detail. He's got a great eye for like I said, what's going to make it a great overall piece with all of us working together. And so it's always cool to finish a piece and think, that looks really good, and then he comes back and with a tweak here and there. When you make the tweak, you're like, oh man, it looks so much better. It's like, dang.
When you save it, so like right now you just stripped it all down and then you're building it back up. Like, or do you get afraid that you're gonna like mess it up? I mean, I know this cover is already published already, but is every little sequence that you worked on already saved?
Yeah, I mean, I save it as I go along in case the machine crashes or there's a power outage or something like that. I save as much as I can. Photoshop has a great feature that it auto saves for you every 5 minutes. You can designate how often. I have it set to 5 minutes. That way, if something like that happens, I know I've only lost 5 minutes worth of work, and it's not as frustrating. Back in the day, like I mentioned, right, it took so long to save that sometimes, when we were doing a poster, I would hold off on saving because I knew it was going to take 30 minutes to save, and we didn't have the 30 minutes because it was, a poster that was coming down the wire. And of course, it eventually happened that I was working on a poster. I decided not to save, and we lost power. And the guys in the studio said it was kind of funny because the lights went out and all you heard was no coming from my office. And it was because I had gone about an hour and a half and hadn't saved because I was purposely not saving because it was going to take so long. So what stunk about it was that I lost an hour and a half worth of work.
That sounds tough. Speaking of covers and posters, do you have a particular favorite out there in the world that every time you see and you're like, dang, I killed it on that?
There's actually a few that I'm really happy with, really proud of. It's funny how you think that the one that you're on is going to be your best one, and then you finish it, and then you get the next one. You're like, oh, that's going to be my best one, and that's going to be my next one. And I think that's, as an artist, that's what drives you and kind of keeps you going. And there's a few that I'm definitely proud of that over the years has stood up to the other ones. It's the one that people keep bringing back for whatever reason. Yeah, and then you also remember like your first cover that ever saw print too, and that tends to be a favorite because it's the first one that went to press that you did by yourself. We did a flash variant for New 52. That's one of my favorites of all time. Yeah, from the Hush run, it's the 612 where Superman's holding Batman. From Superman for Tomorrow, it's 210 where Wonder Woman's holding Superman. It's the Pieta.
Yep, I have that.
Michelangelo's Pieta. That's a great piece. And then from that same run, 205, the Bullet's coming. You know, that's the one where you have an idea and you just kind of communicated like, hey, Jim, I'm seeing like a Matrix thing here. Like I want to see like the bullets kind of cut in the air. And leaving a ripple effect, and he's like, oh, let's see how it looks. Let's see what you can do with it. And it was there was back and forth with that, where like I think initially I put too many of those, so we took some out and we blurred some of the artwork too to kind of mix it up. And that's the part where I mean that collaboration between us. That's great because the three of us are talking about it. The three of us are trying to make it the best that it can be, and so that's one of the covers that stands out because it took the three of us. Not only penciling and coloring, but then at the coloring stage, the input from the three of us kind of pulling and pushing certain things to make it a really cool cover.
Going back to this cover, so is this the final result right here? Is this the...
No, not at all. And so once I'm done with the rendering, I'll go ahead and add some of the color hold or the glowing stages. And so I do these in different layers. And so if you can kind of look on my screen, over here I have the color is below the inks, but then above the inks I have a layer that will affect the inks themselves. And so that when you turn it off, the inks are still nice and black, but I start to add the glows and the color holds so that the inks aren't completely black, but they're like a deep blue, and that helps kind of separate them spatially from the two characters. So then I'm kind of starting to play with the values, and then just kind of add some little detail work in the spotlights behind them, the stars.
David had mentioned that he uses specialized brushes. Do you have your own brush sets?
I do. I have a bunch of brushes. If you kind of see on here on the bottom right, those are the brushes that I use. These first kind of 25 are the ones that I use a lot. And then the other ones are kind of specialized ones. So these are brushes. These are special effects brushes, and whether it's clouds textures or fire textures, grass textures, all those kind of things, curvy crackle. So some effects brushes. I bought these set of impressionist brushes that are really cool. They just kind of model ink and then I kind of spread it around. It's really cool. The impressionists are probably my favorite art period, and so I love kind of anything that has to do with that. Some pencils, some rake brushes that are just kind of multiple strokes going. Texture brushes, there's tons of those, and then some watercolor stuff.
Wow, that's cool.
I kind of mix and match, and I use watercolor to create concrete texture too. So it's a lot of kind of starting with a brush and altering it so that it does what I need it to. So yeah, a lot of custom brushes and a lot of custom palettes and colors. So if you look at the palette that I have over here, from this upper right corner right down to this this is the flesh tone that I use for the inside of the mouth and the corner of the eye. All that is the colors that I use for everything, and then these colors below are very character book or book specific. So this is Harley Quinn and the Birds of Prey palettes, where this top row here is Harley Quinn's colors. So it's her skin, her lips, her hair, her ponytails, her eyes, her suit colors, her belt, and then her skin tone when she's doesn't have the makeup on. So each color, I start off with the same color for everything.
Wow.
These are Bernie's colors. Let's see, the Birds of Prey are done. So here's Joker, Poison Ivy. The Birds of Prey are here. So here's Huntress, here's Cass, and where's Canary is down right here. And then these are the other characters throughout here. All the characters that have come out through the different Harley Quinn books I just kind of add their swatches on there so that when I need Harley Quinn skin color, I just go tap it and bring it back in and then paint. So kind of like you saw how I start with the same skin tone all the time and then I start to wash it with color. All my pages look like that, so that I can probably show you this. So this is from the next issue of Harley Quinn and the Birds of Prey, where it looks flat, and I start off with those same colors no matter where they are, and then you'll see that I will add washes of color to those same colors to create the illusion of depth or put them in the environment that they need to be in, and also to help kind of focus the action.
By the time this airs, that probably is going to be out.
Yeah, it's probably going to be out. It'll be out in about a month.
Yep.
Even if it airs before that, that's why I put this white block here, because it gives away a huge plot point. So it's hidden on purpose.
Okay.
That's awesome.
Yeah, this is so cool, Alex. We feel so privileged that you're showing this. I hope the Stash fam are appreciating. We got the legend Alex Sinclair coloring live for us right now, which is awesome. I really love this. We wanted to take time because this is our first Six Slayer show in a while, and we feel that we're one of the preeminent signature collectors in the whole planet. And so we just wanted to show you our top 5 Alex Sinclair Superman and Batman books.